ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you so much, everybody. Happy Tuesday afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started with our June meeting of the Middleton Library Board of Directors. I see that we've got some members of the public present today. Welcome to you all. Very happy to have you here. Our first item on our agenda, as always, is our public comment period. I would invite anyone who wishes to make a comment to the board at this time. What I'd like to do, through our Zoom capabilities, is ask folks to raise their hand either physically, or you can use the fancy hand waving function within Zoom, and I will call on folks one at a time. I would like to say that this is the public comment period. During the public comment period, we would ask members of the public to refrain from commenting during the other parts of our meeting. So this is your time to speak up, and we would really very much like to hear from you. I won't be timing anybody. Please feel free to say what you need to say, but keep it relatively brief. And it would be very helpful if you would identify yourself not only by name, but by your affiliation or interest in affairs of the library. So with that, I will go ahead and open the public comment period. Don't all raise your hands at once. Last call. Oh, hello, Catherine. You are on mute. Oh, we still can't hear you, Catherine. Let's see, I've just asked to unmute. Do you see something you can click on your screen?
Okay.
There we go. We've got you.
Okay, I was just going to say I'm a longtime volunteer with the book sales, and that's the reason I'm attending tonight's meeting, just to watch the vote that's going to get rid of that that function. So I had hoped that there would be several other friends of the library here, and they may yet join in. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is to welcome our newest trustee, Jean Phillips. Jean, could you raise your hand and wave hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone.
Very sorry that we are not able to meet with you in person, but next month we'll get to all get together for the first time in a long time. So Jean was recently appointed to the board by Mayor Brewer. We're very excited to have her fill a seat on our board. Jean has a long history within Middleton, including being PTA president and vice president at Elm Lawn School, which that is in and of itself a Herculean task. And she was also very much involved at Middleton High School, subcommittee chair, volunteer for the band, and she is interested in continuing her community service. She is also a librarian, and she is the director of the Space Science and Engineering Library at UW, which I would love to hear more about. I think that's really wonderful. Has a lot of experience in strategic planning, and I'm told you enjoy upholstery and true crime. Things I also want to hear about. So I hope I haven't stolen all your thunder, but please, Jean, if you'd like to say a couple of words to say hello to the board, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Middleton has been home for nearly 30 years for me. And as you all know, my career has kind of centered around research, teaching, communications, and information access in its various forms at UW-Madison. And I've raised two children, both of whom attended Elm Lawn, the Old Cromrie, and Middleton High Schools. And, they had access to a wealth of resources offered through their schools, through the Middleton Public Library, through the South Central Library System. And then because of the nature of, my work at UW-Madison, I was able to provide access to specialized library resources to them as they needed them and as they went through school. And so these are rich resources, and I'm a firm believer in the central role of libraries, whether it's in an academic setting or a public library setting, to provide basically unfettered access to information. And so that's why I'm excited to join all of you and hope that over time I can make some meaningful contributions to the Middleton Public Library. And so, yeah, thank you for inviting me to join you.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Jean. We really are grateful. And, this is your first official meeting as a board member. So we move fast here in Middleton. So thank you very much for joining us today. We look forward to working with you. Of course, the sad thing is with a gaining of a board member, we also have to lose one. And I'm very sad to have to say goodbye to Rob Seltzer. Rob reached the end of his second 3-year term on our board, and under our bylaws, that's all you get. So we've got to say goodbye to Rob, but I'm really glad you were able to join us tonight, Rob, because I really did want to publicly thank you for all of the wonderful work that you have done on behalf of the library. I asked Jocelyn to pull together just a few highlights for me. You led the building feasibility study in 2015 that really set us in motion for jumpstarting planning on our best use and future needs of the library and downtown. You assisted in the hiring of the library director in 2016, and we all believe that that was a wonderful hire, and thank you for working through that process, which I know is difficult. You attended Wisconsin Library Association meetings with library staff, part of the building committee. You served as a term as library board president, and of course have been on our board since 2015. So we are really going to miss you, Rob. You really have been a wonderful guide to me. You've been around the whole time I have, for sure, and I really thank you very much for your service. So if anyone else would like to speak up, please go ahead now and thank Rob. All right, thank you.
Wait,
go ahead, Robert. Well, you gotta keep moving.
No, I want to echo everything. You've been around since I've been here too, and I could not have been the president during my term of this without the help of you and Cindy and others who made it look easy, and it wasn't that easy when I did it. So thank you so much for everything. Really appreciate it.
Actually, Rebecca has served even longer than I have for the library, but other than that, I'm second.
Nice.
That might be it, for sure. Rob, anything you'd like to say as your parting words to us all?
Well, this has been a wonderful experience. I've had a great time. I've met some terrific people. My proudest time on the library board was hiring Jocelyn, who I thought was a great candidate, and she far exceeded my expectations. Has just been wonderful for the library and for the city of Middleton. So I think that is the moment that I'm proudest of. But it's just great working with all of you. We have important work that we've done and we will continue to do. You will continue to do. And I was pleased to have the opportunity to serve.
Well, thank you, and I hope that we will have an opportunity to see you in person in the coming months at the library. That would be wonderful. So thank you again, Rob.
I'm sure you will.
All right, well, let's move on to the approval of the minutes of our May 11th meeting. Jocelyn, do you have those up? Let's see here. We accepted some changes already to Robert's draft. Thank you, Ralph, for your thoughtful comments. So that's the version we are looking at, or should be looking at. I have everybody too large. There we go. Are there any other comments or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Or second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Next is approval of the May 2021 vendor report.
Sure. Well, first off, does anyone have any questions I can answer about this report? The one thing I wanted to point out this month is just, Jocelyn, if you scroll down to that 315 and 340 account, that's that outside services and building maintenance. And you'll see a debit in building maintenance and then a credit into outside services. And that's just shifting our spending for our building cleaning vendor. That was a request this year from the city to move that to a separate account, that 315 account, which is consistent with how other city departments handle that. So we are taking care of that, and going forward you will see environment controls. That is our monthly expense to our building cleaners, and that will show up in the 315 going forward.
Great.
Great. This is Robert. I have a question.
Sure.
I know from other readings that we had this month that there's been a huge uptick in people using digital books and digital media. And obviously, because people didn't have as much access physically to the library, there's been a downturn in physical books being checked out. And is there anything that you can point out here? Are we starting to see are we starting to change our expenses, or how we, are we seeing like a higher expense in certain areas and a lower expense in other areas that you could maybe point to at all in this vendor report, or is it just kind of more of an ongoing general trend?
Yeah, it's kind of an ongoing general trend, and you'll see it in new digital products that we're offering, like that Hoopla database was a big undertaking this year, and that's all digital services. And then you'll see also on this report the renewal of our Flipster digital magazine database. So we're keeping those really robust. They're really popular. Obviously, this last year has driven a lot of attention towards our digital resources. But I would also say, now that we are opening up again, if you look at our books spending this last month, it's up. And that's because people are finally back in the building. They're clearing off our shelves of popular materials that they weren't browsing over the past year. And so we are actually at this point, at least for the time being, kind of playing catch up a little bit with some of our physical materials too, to satisfy that.
Just a few additional details there. We did dedicate 30,000 out of the 230 books account specifically for Hoopla. That's a pay-per-view service, and so it's up to $30,000. The total budget for books it well exceeds beyond that. And then we'll review what those breakdowns are in depth next month when we do the mid-year budget review and prep and kickoff for the next budget cycle. Excuse me. So we'll be diving a little bit more into statistics and numbers related to digital content next month.
Okay, thanks to both of you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments on the vendor report?
I'd also just like to mention, since this is Jean's first meeting, we review the vendor report. This is the expenditures of the library each month as required by law. You'll start to get to know what these account numbers over here are on the side. The 212 is our operating fund. The 204 is our revenue fund. And we'll review these accounts with balances and projections next month. So this kind of gives you an idea of what activity and itemized activity happens underneath each of those account lines.
Great, thank you.
You get a motion to approve the vendor report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, so the next item on our agenda is further discussion and vote with respect to operation of a Friends of the Library bookstore within the library building. I think to get us started, Jocelyn was going to make a brief presentation. So let me give her a minute to get her PowerPoint slides up and ready to go.
Sure. Thanks, Courtney. So we've discussed the MOU agreements at the last meeting, and this is really an overview of the facts of where we're coming from in making a decision regarding the use of space and staff time in relation to forward ability to create an MOU. So beginning at the very beginning, the mission and purpose of the library is to make a positive difference in the quality of life in the community by offering a safe and welcoming environment, supplying free and open access to knowledge and information, meeting the informational, educational, and recreational needs of the community, and by providing highly competent library staff members to assist, guide, and instruct. The purpose of the Friends of the Library, formed in 1973, was to promote and improve library services, materials, and facilities for the Middleton Public Library, to stimulate and encourage gifts and bequests to the library, to recruit, support, and recognize any volunteer whose aim it is to strengthen the library programs, and to encourage the broadest use of its facilities, materials, and services. So these are two out of the three of the governing bodies that oversee and support the Middleton Public Library, the third being the Common Council. So the library wouldn't be what it is today without the Friends. Since 1991, they've provided over $600,000 worth of support. And you can really see over here the information taken from the last annual report. Well, I shouldn't say last, the 2019 annual report, which was our last real activity year. Really just how much the library has grown. I'd like to particularly call out the programs offered and the program attendance. Programming has, over the last decade or two in public libraries across the world, very much become an essential service offered to the public, just as important as materials are. And without the Friends, the Middleton Public Library would not have been able to grow this service. So in 1999, we offered a total of 201 programs and 3,771 people attended. In 1999, over a decade and a half later, we offered 1,065 programs with 47,777 people in attendance. Those are astounding gains, even for over the course of more than a decade. And all of that was made possible because the Friends of the Library's mission and purpose is to support the library. We've also received several major gifts outside of programming in the last 4 years as part of that purpose, such as the mural of the reading train in the kids area that also supported a local artist, as well as the Next Chapter project, which secured the naming rights for the Friends of the Library community room. This space allowed for the library to offer additional programming and meeting room space that was reservable for the public. Support for the Friends that the library has provided, specifically in the last few years, has focused around a lot of structural support. So in our strategic roadmap, we have a specific area of focus that's considered thriving together, and it focuses on creating an environment where people want to be. So the 3 priorities under here, number 2 is specifically strengthening the organizational structure of volunteers and Friends group. and work with members to broaden the support for the library's mission. So we've done that in a variety of ways over the last few years. In 2017, we created the liaison position for the Friends. Part of this was in a response to the need for staff support. We had Patrick Williams, our IT head of IT, attending the Friends meetings. And it really needed to be the director and a liaison from the library board. The Friends meetings were always at the same time as city council meetings. So I'm not always able to attend those, dependent upon what the agenda is, for city council. So it's really great to have another representative from the governing body of the board available. And then that's where we see the updates happening on a regular standing agenda item at the library board meetings. In 2017, we had the first library board and Friends retreat that was organized with support from the South Central Library System and focused on visioning, strategic planning, and getting to know each other. In 2017, we proposed an MOU similar to what we're revisiting right now. And then in 2017 and 18, we offered combined open meetings with those 3 governing bodies that support the library. 2018, the Friends, we held a spot on the building committee for next chapter, and then added a permanent spot to the development committee. And then in 2019, when we rehired for a full-time circulation supervisor after a succession of promotions, we specifically called out in the job title and updated the job description to include volunteer coordinator, as the majority of our adult volunteers were also Friends members. Our number one group of volunteers is teens. So that helped to provide operational support to our volunteer efforts. A real quick history, in 1990, this library, this building was constructed with an unfinished lower level. In 2004, the lower level was renovated for public access, and the bookstore moved into the space that was designated for future public space. This included the 2 rooms along the Hubbard Avenue side of the building in the lower level that totaled 1,925 square feet. The total square footage of the building is just under 36,000. I think it was in 2012, the additional sale area was designated on the main level that added another 50,000 square feet. This
50.
sale was, thank you, 50 square feet.
50,000 would be amazing.
Thank you, 50 square feet. This is a sale that was available and open all the time, focused on high turnover, popular items, new hardbacks, things that people really came in as a destination for. And all of those sales were handled by staff. In 2015, the building feasibility study findings indicated that with the 20-year projected space needs up to the year 2035, the library would require almost tripling its current square footage to meet that need. There's a variety of metrics that go into that, including state and county standards, which require a certain number of square footage per person, per capita, a certain level of inventory. These are all of the minimum standards that a public library in Dane County needs to meet in order to remain tax exempt, along with that resolution that's passed by the council every year. In 2018, the Next Chapter project combined both of those bookstore areas, so that 50 square foot and then the lower level areas into one on the main level, keeping the 812 feet in the lower level as a storage room, which we also started using a small corner for a storage collection. The new bookstore space took the space of the previously used storytime room, which the library had significantly outgrown. The space was no longer actually safe to hold programs because there was too many people crammed in there. It really was serving as an open play and learn room with occasional smaller programming. This is also a really great place for nursing moms, a bit of a sensory deprivation from an otherwise really busy main social space on the first floor. There was also some safety concerns about having the bookstore downstairs and closed off from the rest of the building. It's a space that I would staff much differently. So that was a concern, having people alone in a room where we might not be able to hear them or get to them easily. A phone was installed. Often there was 2 people in there, but there was times when there was just 1 person alone. The lower levels were also not connected. Since then, we've opened up the door that connects the 2 sections of the lower level. So there's a lot better accessibility. And that was one of the reasons, was a big safety concern. Staff was already supporting the book sale upstairs. So adding that 590 square feet wasn't necessarily adding anything on to what staff was already providing. And it also increased the hours of the store from 12 hours a week to 26 hours a week, and has a visible line of sight right from the front door. That corner is often the most vibrant, busiest corner of the building. In 2018, we began that book storage collection, starting with long runs of series and some of our audio things that were moving to digital content. And then in 2020, the pandemic really accelerated the demand for digital materials. And so this resulted in a need for more storage space to be able to expand the storage for physical materials. Anytime a public library moves from physical collections to digital collections, there is always a transition period where you need to keep formats and multiple options for people, and be able to respond to the needs both ways. We also want to keep those standards to meet the Dane County inventories. Along with some building constraints and flooding in the furnace rooms. So libraries and friends are something that are very common. Almost every public library has some form of a friends group or a foundation. In talking with some of my colleagues at other libraries, Verona has approximately 320 square feet. Wanakee does not have a permanent bookstore space within their new building. Madison no longer has the shop in the downtown central library. They tried for a while operating it like a retail space with a paid employee, and were losing money. Sun Prairie is looking at possibly turning their bookstore, which is in the front of the library entry, into an additional meeting room. And Monona has just small 2 shelves dedicated to sales. The donations of materials and storage of materials is a big challenge for libraries across the board. It's very difficult to maintain space for used book inventory, and is something that we're seeing in libraries across the county. In doing an estimated cost estimate of library staff time in supporting the Friends, this was in direct correlation to the memo of understanding. So everything over on the left is somehow called out or drafted for in the draft MOU. These are just estimates and gives you a snapshot of what we're looking at. So we have the task that the library is supporting, what pay grades and staff are supporting that. So we can see that we've got everybody from grade 1 all the way up to the grade 16. The director is a grade 16. Entry level would be a 1 at a page. So I've estimated costs based on the month and then weekly totals. So we can really get an idea of what are those minimum costs. So the green area is specifically related to the bookstore. And those costs are averaging out conservatively. Again, this is just a snapshot, an estimate to get us looking at where are we putting our efforts in supporting a nonprofit whose sole purpose is to support the library at over $22,000 a year. Funding. So as I mentioned earlier, the library wouldn't be what it is today without the support from the Friends, especially to grow programming specifically. In 2019, the bookstore made $36,000, over $36,000. Memberships were just over 21,000. And the library received $44,651 for programming. It is a lot of pressure for a nonprofit group to support an essential function of a public library. And we identified the programming account in the 212 fund as a priority for growth back in 2018. This account currently has $10,000 in it. And this is an area where we're trying to grow exponentially. $44,000 is a lot. We can do a lot of programming with that much money. The pandemic has really forced us to create and take an essentialist mindset towards what we're doing, how we're doing it, and really be deliberate about our intentionality with programming service delivery. And as a result of that, we are gathering and planning and strategizing across departments in different ways than we had previously. So that is creating some efficiencies with the budget and allowing us to essentially save money in programming without compromising the quality of delivery. There's lots of other options for programming support as well. Grants is something that we have not explored to its fullest capability. We currently are participating in the Beyond the Page Endowment, which offers programming grants every year. This year and next year is really focused on the Ripple project. There's also national and foundation grants that specifically support community development, often which programming falls into. The Next Chapter project with our fundraising campaign really demonstrated that we're just barely dipping a toe into sponsorships and partnerships. There's a lot of potential to not only join forces with local organizations, but also help to accelerate community initiatives and efforts across the board. We have our annual endowment disbursement. The endowment is the permanent trust fund that's held by the Madison Community Foundation. We have two. One is dedicated to large print. The other one is a general endowment that we used for bequests, planned giving. It's really a legacy mechanism for honoring those that would like to support the long-term success of the library. That combined total is just over $10,000 every year. The last several years, we've had very odd expenditure years. In 2019, we ended the year with a fund balance that was a direct result of a succession of promotions. In 2020, we of course ended with a fund balance because the physical facility was closed and a lot of those expenditures swung greatly. And this year, we'll evaluate our projected fund balance next month. There's the specific policy to use for the use of contingency funds, which calls out specifically facilities emergencies and operational continuance. So fund balance expenditures over the amount of I think it's $500 are approved by the board. So that could be a mechanism as well. And then of course, we have working more closely and collaboratively with other member libraries and city departments. A few miscellaneous facts that are helpful to keep in mind. Per Wisconsin State Statutes 4358, all donations are under the authority of the library board. So that's all gifts, all bequests. It also includes the general fund transfer from the city council. So that's one of the reasons why we have a fund balance and why we have policy around it and why we need to be intentional and deliberate about those expending that. Other city departments do not have the state statute guiding their law. Their fund balance rolls back into the city's general fund. Those donations also include physical items. So books that are donated to the library are library property. So would things like paintings or sculptures or anything that's given to the library is the library's property. This is reflected in our gift receipts. And then we also use some donated materials to support outreach efforts outside of the facility. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jocelyn. I actually do have a couple of questions. With respect to the other, if you could go back to the slide with some of the discussions that you had with other libraries, and I really appreciate you doing that research. That's very helpful. I thought that with Madison, there was a separate retail space. Am I mistaken about that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. What I had meant was that there's no dedicated space within their libraries. The retail storefront is in a separate building. I believe it was in the mall over off of, I want to say like High Point.
Oh yeah, over by that great Indian restaurant. But because I thought you said something about they opened it and then it failed, and that was what I was
that's
more about.
Sure, that was the space within Central Library. So if you've been into Central Library before, they had like a separate glass enclosure where they created a room, and that did not work out. So they do accept donations for the Madison Public Libraries. I think it was the Sequoia Friends of the Libraries, I want to say started that. I'd be happy to find out more about those details if you'd like.
No, I mean, that's helpful. I had in my head that there was a separate retail space. And so what I'd heard you saying was that there wasn't, but it sounds like there still is. And then the other question I have, actually, I was interested in Verona, becoming more strict about what items were accepted as donations. How did they accomplish that? Because my understanding, is that one of the issues that we're having in Middleton is that, the bin in the front entryway just gets filled up with things that aren't sellable, things like old magazines, damaged books, other kind of non-saleable items, even trash, right? That's right. Is at least what my understanding. Yeah. And so how were they able to prevent that? Do you know?
Not successfully.
Okay.
Every library I have also ever worked in has never accepted encyclopedias, or magazines. Often most also do not accept textbooks that are more than 5 to 10 years old. Those parameters, when you have an open bin in an open system, are really on the onus of the donating party. And it's very challenging to hold that. When you have and accept donations, it really has to be kind of an all or nothing thing. So we can say we specifically don't accept certain items or that we're looking for certain items, but it will still happen.
Right. So we, in essence, I mean, we have rules now, right?
We do.
It's just,
Yep.
okay. So the alternative would be essentially turning into a half price books where somebody has to come in and physically give a donation to a person who goes through it or something of that nature.
Yep, that's right. That would require a lot of operational support. When do they come in? What's accepted? Who goes through it? Where are those things still stored? You know, we right now, you can see here, did spend approximately 12 hours a week emptying the recycling. This does not include the time that the book sorters were emptying on Wednesdays. So almost every day we're taking things out to the recycling that are either just trash or unsellable. Sometimes things are moldy and damaged. Those we want to get out of the building right away for the concern of bed bugs and mold, which are very real concerns. You know, we accept the items in the front lobby, we take them downstairs, they get unloaded, and then they're brought upstairs again to recycle. So it's a lot of moving things up and down the 2 floors. We also
go ahead.
We also had to often call for an additional recycling pickup. Part of that challenge, the library staff was contributing to, because up until a couple of years ago, we were giving the Friends all of our withdrawn materials. So everything that was withdrawn from the collection also went to the Friends. That's a high volume of materials. So to pull back on that, we started partnering with Better World Books. They're an amazing nonprofit that serves libraries nationwide that essentially serve as a resale and recycling function. So when we withdraw items from the collection in a public library is very transitory and high turnover with a lot of its collection. We have core collections that are items that we replace if they get worn. But you know, new books are being published every day, and a public library needs to meet those demands. So when something is withdrawn, we send it to Better World, and they either resell it or recycle it for us. Those are picked up right off of the loading dock, so that's a really great service. One of the things that the Friends were doing was supporting the efforts of the West Side Breakfast Rotary Club with their literacy endeavors. And so part of those books that were stored at the library, we're supporting another nonprofit as well with the Rotary Club.
Other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Jocelyn. So, you know, as Jocelyn indicated, we have, you know, been looking at this issue of a memorandum of understanding with the Friends. You know, regardless of the outcome of our vote with respect to the bookstore, there will be a memorandum of understanding with the Friends. This is really a foundational issue as to whether or not we need to be working on drafting language in a memorandum of understanding that accounts for a bookstore or not. So at this point, I would ask for a motion from the floor for, with respect to this issue, whether or not the library should continue providing space and staffing to the Friends of the Middleton Public Library to operate a used bookstore.
I can make a motion to discontinue use of library space for the purpose of a bookstore.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
I would say that as far as costs are concerned, the library is a public nonprofit entity. And I think the bookstore has served the community and is a truly look forward to event for a lot of people. I certainly wish there would be some sort of further mitigation, maybe having donations only on weekends, manned entirely by volunteers from the Friends, not including any library staff at all. Some kind of further look at what could be done as opposed to just flat out kicking them out of the library.
I guess I'd like to comment. We certainly recognize the contributions that Friends have made to the library through the years, and no one is making light of that. But looking at the cost benefit analysis and space issues and programming issues, the Friends are putting in a lot of time and effort to have a bookstore. And I think the return on all that time and effort could be spent much more efficiently in other ways of supporting the library. It's not that we are kicking them out. They have a resource of time and energy, which I think would be better put to other uses. And what we're essentially saying is, can we redirect that to be used more efficiently and more productively so that their efforts in fundraising will be more productive? And the book sale, the bookshop is sort of a leftover from things that were done in the past. And as we see, other libraries are taking the path of redirecting their supporting groups in other endeavors. And I think that's the way we should go.
Other thoughts?
This is Robert. I agree with both Ralph and Art. I'd love to have some way where the Friends could continue with no support from the library, and whether that's on premises or off premises, that would need to be worked out. But what was a little eye-opening to me was something that Jocelyn said, which is the books, I forget the exact wording she used, the books that basically are retired from being lent out at the library are, at one point were going to the Friends. It was just kind of this mass of books that it didn't end up working out that way. So at the end of the day, even the library's older books just kind of get given away because the trying to turn them into a used book sale material was too difficult, too problematic. So that's where I kind of fall on Art's side. What Art just mentioned is that I love the fact that the Friends are passionate about the library, are passionate about volunteering to help out. Where it comes down for me is, is this the best use of their time as well? Because if they put all this time in and there's very little benefit and there's a lot of trash and recycling that needs to be dealt with, maybe, and a lot of volunteer time, or not volunteer, but a lot of time of library staff to support that. I think at the end of the day, it ends up being not the benefit that we all thought it was. So I guess to sum up, I very much value what the Friends have done and want to continue to do. And if there's just some way that we can find a solution by working with the Friends, that we get all that great volunteer energy and passion, but redirected to something that's really more helpful in supporting the mission of the library, I think that would be a win-win for everyone.
Other thoughts or comments? Well, I will say that I absolutely echo, I think, all of our comments with respect to our appreciation and value placed on the Friends. And this is an organization that is, close to 50 years old. It's a vital part of what we do. I'm really, frankly, excited about the possibility of finding new ways to use that volunteer energy, as you pointed out. And I think we should maybe, clarify the motion a bit as well, because I do want to say that, the point here, I believe, of Mary Beth's motion, and she can clarify for me if I'm wrong, but when we talk about a bookstore, that is a permanent place within the library that sells books. That doesn't mean that there couldn't be special events at the library or elsewhere that involve the sale of used books. It would be, but what we're talking about is the bookstore in its current configuration, in a location that's a permanent spot in the library, using library space and time.
Yep, that's correct. Courtney, thanks for clarifying that it's the permanent use of space for the book sale. And if there's a better way to word the motion, I'm open to accept any changes to that.
What is the motion on the table, Robert? What do you have?
Oh, geez. Sorry, am I even? Okay, good. I'm not muted. That's the start. I had Mary Beth made a motion to I think I get this right. Discontinue the book sale from within the library is kind of what I had jotted down, and then Art seconded the motion. But yeah, I don't know that I got the motion written down extremely clearly, but that's what I have. Motion to discontinue the bookstore within the library.
And staff support for that was part of the motion as well.
Yeah, I must have missed that, so I'll add that right now too.
Okay. All right, any further comments before we call for a vote?
Call for a roll call.
Absolutely. So Ralph's asked us to do a roll call vote, which I'm happy to do. I'll just go across my screen.
Point of order, Courtney.
Yes.
Can anybody request a roll call? Does that need to be voted on?
No.
I don't think so.
I'm just curious because it's never come up before.
Yeah, I don't think our bylaws address it, but unless there's an objection, I think, we're a small enough group.
Just Robert's Rules of Order. Usually certain things require a vote and certain things don't. I don't know the answer, but just so we're clear, I'll second the roll call motion.
All right, all in favor of doing a roll call vote, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so we'll do a roll call vote. I'll start with you, Art. You're the first on my screen.
I'll vote yes. In favor of the motion.
In favor of the motion, yes. Mary Beth.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Ralph.
No.
Cindy.
Aye.
Jean.
Abstain.
And I vote yes. And I believe that's it. Did I miss anyone? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I think we're ready to move on to committee updates unless anyone has anything else on this topic.
Just to be clear, the motion carried.
I'm sorry, the motion carried. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, committee updates. I'll go ahead and start with personnel. Jocelyn met with the personnel committee, which consists of Robert and Mary Beth and myself on May 14th. And we have submitted her written performance review to Brian Wolhopter, who accepted it on May 17th. So thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful work on Jocelyn's performance review. Development committee. I'll go ahead. The next meeting is June 18th at 1:30 in the Friends Community Room. Anything else to add to that, Jocelyn?
No, we're reconvening after, I shouldn't say I said no and then I meant yes.
Yes, I would like to add to that.
Just a couple additional details. We're reconvening after a bit of a hiatus due to the pandemic and reopening, and because we finished the Next Chapter campaign. So this committee really was formed in relation to the need for Next Chapter fundraising support. It includes currently myself, Rebecca Light as staff, Mary Beth, a Friends representative currently was the president, Karen Natoli. And then we also had one committee member as additional trustee in former trustee Chris Morris. We have one spot filled by a community member, former trustee Joan Gilman. The committees are appointed by the library board. So we'll be discussing the future of the committee, what's needed, what did we learn from the campaign, and then planning a Next Chapter celebration, because of course we need to really mark the completion and success of the project. So agenda to follow.
Any questions about that? All right, well, let's move on to a report of the nominating committee. Jocelyn had included in your packet a copy of our board trustee commitment letter and job description. The commitment letter is something we adopted, I guess, 2 years ago. Does that sound right, Jocelyn? That's just kind of an annual reminder to all of us of our obligations as board members. Is that something you can get up on the screen?
Yep, thanks. Just a second as I switch gears here.
No problem.
Right.
There we go. So other than adding the changing the year, I don't believe there have been any changes to this document since we've accepted it in the past. So I don't think we need to.
Can we discuss that at all?
Absolutely. I was going to say we don't need to vote on it again, but we certainly can, especially if there are any proposed changes.
Item 3, I'll make an annual personal financial contribution to benefit the library in an amount that is personally significant to me. It is among the largest of my personal charitable donations each year. That I really don't see of any use or value to any library board. If you want financial contributions for a fund drive, those are done individually and make a much greater impact. This has the connotation of pay to play. And in that sense, I certainly don't agree with that one.
I will say, Ralph, that it was designed and written to not be pay to play. In other words, I certainly have been a member of nonprofit boards in which there is an expected minimum amount that is a specific amount, and of course, that amount might mean a great deal to me and might mean very little to another board member with significantly more wealth. So I will say that there was an effort made to not tie it to any specific flat amount, but instead to say that this shows that the members of the library board are supportive of the library's programs and services in whatever way that they feel is again, personally significant to them, that this is a cause they care about and a cause that they wish to support. But open to discussion about that.
I was involved when we did this, and I remember that discussion being pretty much just what you're saying now, because we hadn't had anything like this in the past, and we had some question about whether we wanted to put that in there, and we chose to do it for basically the reasons you just said. It was not connected to a particular project; it was connected to our commitment to the library in whatever financial way we thought was appropriate for us.
How do you know if somebody's done that or not? Are you monitoring that?
There's none of these items are monitored. This is a personal commitment that we're making as a board member.
So in fact, you don't know whether somebody's doing it or not. It's the honor system, right?
Absolutely.
So why don't you just end with that is personally significant to me and take out the rest of it?
Well, it's still a financial contribution.
Yes,
and
but
when you talk about other nonprofit organizations, this is a public entity. You're talking about members who have been nominated by the mayor and approved by the council. And I don't feel that an appointed or a public elected official should have anything that has any connotation of pay to play as far as any commitment. Look at the governor of Illinois if you have any question on that.
I think the point here, Ralph, is that we were trying to make it clear that if you want to be a member of the Board of Trustees of the Middleton Public Library, we expect you to support the library in all ways, and to be in your heart, in your best interests of the library. That's one way in which that can be shown. But if that's objectionable, I'm happy to put it to a vote, happy to remove that clause if, again, this is something that our board in the past has accepted. So certainly happy to entertain a change there. Anyone else have comments on it?
I'm going to delete it.
What if we said just what you said, Courtney, that I will somehow make a contribution in support, or I will be supportive of the library in either time, effort, or financial contributions. Then it's optional as to how you want to do it, and there's no you have to pay to play, but you have to be supportive of the library. Something to indicate that you will work to support the library.
All of the other ones talk about participation, so there's no need to say I will participate. I just think a financial connotation at all shouldn't be in there at all. I move to delete that, number 3.
Is there a second?
I'll make you aware that I will not agree to that number 3 if you call for a commitment. I'll agree to everything else.
Could we strike the wording that continues after me and put a period after me and remove the rest of it?
I think that's still objectionable to Ralph. I think we already made that suggestion.
Okay.
So, I don't think no one is going to be compelled to sign this document. It is again something that we present to the board as a commitment that we're willing to undertake or not. So, if there's not a second, I guess I'm not sure where to go with this next.
Well, then the motion dies with no second. Is this the document that needs a notary? There was some
No,
other document
absolutely not.
there was some
Yeah, no.
document that was
That's next on the agenda, Art.
Okay.
That's from the city. This is something that we internally developed and have talked about, and I believe this would be the third year of using.
Okay. So we sign it and send it to who?
Jocelyn, if you want, or the secretary if you want, or no one if you want. I don't think we've followed up with anybody to enforce or make sure that it's something that has been signed.
Gotcha. Okay,
I
thanks.
think we sent them to Rebecca in the past, didn't we?
Is that right?
I think
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I have collected them in the past. But again, I'm not sure that we hounded anyone who didn't
No,
turn
and I
in.
don't think we will. I mean, we did not put this on the agenda as an action item. It was discussion. I guess we'll leave it as, if you would like to sign and send this to Rebecca, please do. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine as well. That nobody's being compelled to do so. All right, let's move on to the officer slate. So we presented the slate from the nominating committee, which consisted of myself and Robert and Mary Beth. Our proposed slate of officers for the coming year was for me to be president, for Mary Beth to be president-elect, and for Robert to be secretary. Before we vote on that slate, are there any further nominations from the floor? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the officer slate?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you. City of Middleton oath and volunteer orientation invitation. That was, I think, what you were thinking about, Art.
Okay.
My understanding is that this oath is something that has been asked of other committees in the past, but is not something that our committee has ever been asked to sign before or has signed before. Is that correct, Jocelyn?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, while you're getting the oath up, you probably have seen or may have seen from Mike Davis an invitation for a meeting. It's June 23rd at 3 p.m. via Zoom, in which Mike Davis and other city officials will be conducting some training, having a session about the cities. I believe there's going to be, some discussion of city priorities, strategic planning, et cetera. So I would invite everybody to attend that. And if we haven't sent it out already, we'll make sure to do so. So this is this official oath document. And really, I think what's on our agenda is to decide, our views on this, whether we want to, agree to have board members sign to this or not. And as you noted, Art, it requires a notary, which, seems pretty excessive to me, but that's my personal opinion. So thoughts about this, maybe, from Cindy or others who've been around for a while?
My question is, why is this coming to us now when it hasn't come to us in the past?
This is just an invitation. It's optional for the library board. Since the library board is not a city committee, the real differentiating factor there is that the library board is governing. It's governed by its own set of state statutes. This is really a gesture and an invitation for the library board to be included in the process that other committee members go through when they become volunteers at the city, along with participating in that orientation process.
My other question is, how long have they been doing this? I was on the Plan Commission for 25 years and we never did this.
You know, when I started in 2016, I don't recall seeing this. I did see it last year. So I would have to ask our city administrator that, or maybe
Okay. I would
Sure.
just be curious about the reason for it and whether there's any value in us doing it. And I don't see much based on what I've heard so far.
No, I don't either. I mean, to me, having a sworn oath for like the elected officials, I had to swear to an oath, but I'm not sure that I see the purpose, especially for this group. And I would even have to ask, for instance, the city administrator, if this is something that's required of other city committees, but because I've not seen this before, and I find it problematic as I think Courtney, you stated. How do you do this, you know, with notary publics? You know, it just seems cumbersome and not designed to really help anything. So my thought on this is that this is unnecessary for at least the library board of trustees.
Any further thoughts about it? I don't know that we need a motion, especially if there's no one, you know, interested in moving that we sign and adopt it. So, all right, you've been informed. Let's move on to liaison updates. Robert, City Council.
Sure. I'd say the biggest things going on right now, I really is the fact that, let's see, actually, I don't really have much of an update right now. Nothing that I have is all that important to, I'd say, what's going on at the library. The biggest thing I was going to say is just the city is opening up its spaces in its city hall, and I know that one of the things that's being asked of all committees and all groups is, do other groups want to open up their doors, and does it make sense? You know, does it make sense for the library? Does it make sense for the senior center? And what does that look like? What does that mean? So I'd say that's the big thing that's kind of here before us for, you know, the next couple of months is, how do we open up? How do we open up safely? How do we protect our people plus the you know, all the patrons who would come to the library? And I think how that affects us is, you know, the library is already opening up on a schedule, and I think Jocelyn's doing a great job at that. The question would be, do we, as the board of trustees, do we want to start meeting again in live meetings where we gather at the library, have people face to face, or do we continue doing Zoom meetings, or do we do a hybrid, which is really difficult to do a hybrid, because how do the people who are not on Zoom see and hear the people who are on Zoom, and vice versa? So that's really a quandary that the Common Council is looking at, and individual committees are also being asked to look at. So I wanted to bring that to the group.
I think that's an important discussion to have. It's not really, you know, on the agenda at this point. We have on our agenda a plan for a meeting in person on July 13th. Jocelyn, share what guidance you've been getting from the city in that regard.
Sure. One of the great things about Zoom meetings, and we can attest to this meeting right now, I know that there's some staff here that are tuning in remotely. It does create another avenue for access in civic engagement. To be able to offer both in person and online simultaneously is a technology challenge. We will, in fact, Patrick and I have been working with 2 different vendors to secure quotes for the Archer meeting room that would include technology upgrades and simultaneous live casting and live streaming. So that could be a possibility in the future. I think planning on for the immediate future, especially the next few months, in person at the library is the direction that we're headed.
Can I just make a comment on that? I belong to another organization that has started offering hybrid, and I'm no technological wizard, but I think all they're doing is asking the people that attend in person to bring a device so they can be seen on Zoom, and then they're projecting those Zoom images, and they have a speaker so that the people that are there and the people that are not there are able to interact with each other. It may not be as simple as I'm portraying it, but that's what I think they're doing.
I think everyone across the country right now is looking at how can we keep the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a discussion and a technology challenge that we'll be addressing moving forward. And as long as there's interest in creating that and sustaining both models as an option, I think we should pursue it.
I agree. The technological issue that I've personally seen has been audio feedback, correct? Right? You can imagine that as soon as two people in the same room both turn on their microphones, all of a sudden one person says something and you start getting this whining, screeching, echoey effect going back and forth between different things. We've seen it at City Hall a number of times when we've had a few people physically in the building. So that's, I think, Cindy, your solution is fantastic, as long as there's some way to kind of muffle the noise well enough.
I think all they're doing is asking people that are on, they have a central microphone, and they're asking people that have their own equipment on just not to activate the audio part of it, but to speak, and it goes through one central microphone for everybody, because they certainly did have that problem for a while. Believe me, this is not a high-tech organization, so if they're doing it, it must be fairly simple to do, is what I'm saying, what I'm thinking.
That's great, and that's what we need is whether they're complex solutions or simple solutions, we need a solution, and maybe that's it. So thank you.
Well, I guess the question is this. I mean, are we comfortable setting an in-person meeting next month without knowing whether we would have the technological capability to be hybrid? Or do we want to remain on Zoom until we feel like we have a good solution in the library building?
Well, has everybody had both shots?
What's
I
that?
have.
Has everybody had both shots?
Yes, but what about public access at the meeting with public people coming in? You don't know their status. I personally would prefer to stay on Zoom, and I would need to know more details before I'd be willing to come in person.
Other thoughts?
I like the hybrid idea.
It's my understanding that if we're vaccinated, it's the people that are not vaccinated that are at more risk than we are. But I also would say I think it's a very individual decision based on everybody's comfort levels. So if people are not comfortable, I don't think we should try to force anybody to come in person.
I'm comfortable coming in. As was stated, I have both my vaccine shots, and I'm going to have to come into City Hall for other meetings. But yeah, if we can work out a hybrid solution, I think that gives everybody the best solution, because then people can participate even when they don't feel comfortable. So the trick will be there may be a couple of glitches along the way as we work out, solutions for that. But so I'm happy to show up next month live, but if some people don't, we'll try to bring a Zoom portion of the meeting, I would say, if we can.
All right, Jocelyn, we'll work on that and communicate with the board, what our status is, because I do think it is possible to get a way that we can do it hybrid and have everyone able to participate.
Okay, I'll let you know what that might look like, and definitely something we would want to practice beforehand.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Friends update. Art?
Basically, Friends are still working on details of their future. And the vote that we had tonight will close one option. And things are still up in the air.
All right. Well, I hope that you will, continue to communicate our support for their ability to continue and expand. I know that there had been some mention of additional board member volunteers for the Friends, and I hope that those folks are being followed up with. School district, Mary Beth.
Yes, we had our last day of school last Friday. So school year has ended. Students are on summer break. We have some students who I mentioned at previous meetings will be participating in our summer academy. And really the focus right now is just continuing construction at the high school. That's well on its way. Onboarding of new staff. We have a couple new administrators that are joining us, a new principal at Elm Lawn and a new principal at Northside. At Elm Lawn, it's Lisa Rust, and at Northside, Scylla Zerov. So onboarding those new leaders. And then we just had a really great graduation ceremony for our seniors, and wishing them well and congratulating them on their accomplishments. We were able to hold one. Earlier in the school year, we weren't sure what the end of the school year was going to look like with the pandemic. There was no graduation ceremony last year. So being able to do that was very exciting to see the students in the stadium and to be able to celebrate them. So that's a brief update that I have.
And the families too. A personal thank you. You can all see my sunburned cheeks from Sunday, but it was great.
It was a warm day, but it was a beautiful
warm sunny day. Great. Any updates on the community? How about EDI efforts? I know Rose was not able to join us tonight. Anybody able to make a report there?
Just a quick note that Collaborate with the Library Forum has seen a little bit of action recently, and so that's been really great. There was a recommended or suggested idea that came through in relation to Pride Month, which is the month of June. So while it's a little late to pull something together this year, it's a really great example of how we can use that forum to create partnerships and form ideas online together. So that's midlibrary.org/collaborate.
Terrific. All right, director's update.
All right, May was an exciting month that focused on reopening. So just a quick rundown of our areas of focus here in relation to our strategic roadmap. We will be beginning participation with the city's strategic planning and efforts that will start this month. This is contracted through Vanderwall and Associates Incorporated, who has done a lot of work for the city over the decades, and it will really aim to unite cross departments efforts, as well as focus heavily on equity. So I'm excited that the library was invited to participate in this. There will be a steering committee. Most of the meetings, I believe, will be public. And I think it's going to be a really great way to be able to work together across city departments and create some improved structures of support and ways of gathering and planning together. Outreach efforts are still in full swing this summer. Amy has some big plans for park visits across the city all summer long. Information about that city orientation was shared via Zoom. Even though the invitation for the oath was declined, I will say, and perhaps Rob and Cindy as longer term trustees can speak to this, was you know, in previous iterations of the library, library might not have always been included in those things. So it's nice that the city administration is extending the invitation, that they're thinking of the library with things like strategic planning and board orientation. And that orientation will give a good overview of the current status of city efforts and where the city is at with planning endeavors.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Our youth services team spent quite a bit of time earlier this year with wrapping up with a project that wrapped up in May called Project Ready. This was 13 modules that focused around the history of race and racism. The results and outcomes from what staff have learned are directly affecting collection growth and service delivery. This is you know, honoring the freedom of expression, intellectual freedom, the right to read, civil discourse, along with really promoting diversity and understanding of biases and differences is a major part of our strategic roadmap. And this was a really great reflection of that in action. Starting at the end of June, there will be 14 staff that will be participating in a 3-series training focused on equity and restorative justice with the YWCA. These will be all-day trainings that really focus on an embodied practice. So we're really looking forward to that. I think I mentioned this last month, but with the Ripple project, one of the big outcomes that staff indicated as an action item that we could take now was more learning and training. So this is directly related to that support. If you haven't been in the library yet this last week, please make a visit soon because we have an amazing art exhibit up right now. Made possible through the Christensen Family Art Gallery, which was created as a naming rights opportunity with the Next Chapter campaign. We've partnered with Arts for All Wisconsin. They work with across the state of Wisconsin in supporting artists of all abilities. So this is the perfect partnership for public libraries because public libraries are for all as well. It's really great. It adds a lot of color. It runs the entire length of the wall along Hubbard Avenue, and we already have ideas for where we might be able to expand. We will be meeting with the City Arts Committee later this month to review some policies that we have in place, perhaps make a recommendation to the board for any amendments that might support arts in libraries, and then really talk about how can we partner with the City Arts Committee to support local artists and the gallery space. So we're really excited about that. It's added a lot of life and a lot of color to the space. We're looking closely at our statistics every month. In May, we had over 6,000 visitors. And again, that was just open the 3 days a week. So, you know, over an increase of 542 is directly related to those hours of availability. Our total physical circulation is continuing to increase and shift. We're seeing a decrease in curbside each week as we look to reopen on the afternoon of June 23rd, immediately following a staff development morning. We will be shifting our hours of operating back to almost what it was previously. So we will be open Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., Fridays, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We just finalized these plans in management team yesterday, and we'll be making announcements later this week. To accommodate the desire and need for some of our patrons to still have curbside, we're going to take those by telephone and have items ready and available and checked out for people when they come into the building. So because we're not able to offer both simultaneously, we've discussed a lot of options in terms of, can we sustainably offer a car delivery, like by designating a parking spot, or we had the front loading zone temporarily rezoned. We've really determined that because of the design of the parking lot and the snow in the winter, this was going to be very difficult to be able to sustain. So we're going to switch over to ready checkout, and people can call in and we can have them ready for them. Because we already were doing curbside where people were getting out of their vehicles and approaching the building, we're hoping that just a little extra won't be too much, but that's definitely something that we're continuing to evaluate and review. Digital materials are averaging about 9,100 a month this year. This is really affecting the physical collection in the shifting that we're seeing there. This was a blurb that we included in the newsletter this year. And then the only thing that we won't have available quite yet at the library is our meeting rooms. We're working on securing a bid for furniture, working on those tech upgrades, and then we're also reviewing our meeting room policy. So that could be another potential review that I bring to the board for with a recommendation. The study rooms will be open, the lower level will be open. We will be continuing in-person events outside for the summer, but we're already planning for in-person events later this year. And then lastly, I've been doing a lot of work as well as a couple of our other staff with our human resources manager, Brian, over at City Hall. We are evolving our human resources capacity to create better transparency, timeliness, compliance, and equity with the way that we hire. And so far, the mechanisms that were in place to be able to make this happen are things like the Neogov hiring platform. Most local governments use Neogov for their hiring, so it's something that people are very familiar with as they're applying for jobs in public service. And it has a much broader, wider reach than with just a paper application that we offer in the library. So we're really excited to continue moving those efforts forward. We are currently hiring right now. It's linked off of our website on midlibrary.org/employment. We have 2 library assistant positions open, and then we're hiring for a number of library pages, which is the entry-level position. So we're excited to welcome a handful of new staff in a couple of weeks. Any questions?
All right. Thank you very much, Jocelyn. So as we talked about, our plan would be to meet in person if people feel comfortable doing so. July 13th at 5:30, we will work on a way to make it hybrid. So anyone who would like to remain remote can. And with that, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
So move.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks again. Thank you again, Rob. And we're very happy to welcome Jean and looking forward to next month. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Courtney.